So this is my client Neal, and Neal and I have worked together for the last 3 months, moving forward to working together in a more of a maintenance program for the next four. And he's been willing to share what changes he's experienced in his health since we first started working together. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah. So would you mind starting out just filling us in on what you were dealing with when you first reached out to me?
Yeah, we when we first talked, it was about early October, um,
Mhm.
and I think you put up a video on social media, kind of talking about fatigue and hormone levels in middle-aged guys. I'm like, hey, that's me. And I'd been dealing with some stuff 2021, 2022. I kind of felt like I cratered a little bit. Was diagnosed with a sleep disorder middle of last year, and then was kind of turning things around, but was definitely feeling 40 approaching quickly. Um, and, was more fatigue, sleeping more, diminished appetite, and wasn't quite ready to accept that yet.
Mm.
And we had some good early conversations, and you quickly picked up on some issues to address. So,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that cluster of symptoms is so common, and like you said, didn't feel ready to accept that. And it's interesting, we shouldn't have to accept that regardless of what age we are, but definitely not in your late 30s. So that fatigue that you were dealing with and the sleep issues, they had gotten pretty severe, breath holding for a couple minutes a night, losing 3 or 4 hours of quality sleep a night. What have you seen change with your sleep and with your energy?
it's been a major turnaround in the past few months. Was starting to address that prior to us talking, but there was still a lot of, uh, you know, derivative issues from it that were stemming out of it that I wasn't addressing yet. Um, Energy wise, I mean, usually by dinner time, I was like done for the day. Didn't have any real motivation or will to go out and do anything. Um, Recovery wise, I mean, I was still spending, hour or two in the gym most days. It just wasn't getting the same effects out of it. It felt more like, kind of obligatory maintenance rather than, growth. And that was getting really frustrating. But that's turned around significantly. And I said before, I mean, I feel like you've pushed the clock back about 10 years on some things. So that's been huge and more than I expected. So
Yeah. Yeah. And with the gym and with your workouts, your performance, athletic performance, what were you dealing with when you and I first started working together? And then what have you seen change since? Because I know that's been a very obvious, more tangible result is, the amount of weight that you can lift. It's a little bit less subjective.
yeah, I mean, I've always that's always been a big hobby of mine, and that was a big stress outlet most of my life. And it was starting to become less enjoyable. Recovery times were taking a lot longer. I was slowly starting to see maximum weight levels creep down, and then it was really getting tough to accept. Um, but we addressed that as not only in its own activity, but also as a stress outlet, maybe not being the most healthy things well, and moderating it more and getting more out of what time I spend there. But I've definitely seen, you know, performance wise, going back to like at this point, like my late 20s, I'm keeping up with what I would have been doing then. So, watching the 25-year-olds do what I used to be able to do was kind of tough, but that's been good. Definitely getting more out of my recovery time. And you taught me how to recognize when I need that better. There's been a couple times where I, in recent years past, would have just forced myself to go in and stick to the routine and not say, all right, I need to sit out a day and just have an active recovery day or just walk today or spend a day on the couch. And that's not something I've been good at in the past. So that's been a huge help, and I'm seeing the benefits of that.
Yeah, and I know that that just feels so affirming and relieving because you can do the thing that you love that is such a stress management. What do you feel like made the biggest difference for you when we're thinking about, athletic performance, sleep, fatigue? Um, what do you feel like helped you the most to get to the place where you are right now?
Uh, we we looked at my sleep habits pretty deeply. I mean, you went into some much deeper stuff than I expected or had ever researched on my own. And again, with exercise and diet and sleep, I always kind of, arrogantly, stubbornly thought I was had pretty good habits. And maybe I was, had the right idea, or I was doing something halfway, and wasn't doing it in the right combination or executing it properly. Um, but kind of built more of a routine around sleep with different little rituals and behavior modifications.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, like I'm seeing that recovery time better, improved mood, improved energy during the daytime. And that was something I needed some work on for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting because, like you said, you felt like you could reverse the clock 10 years. You feel like you can now perform the way you could 10 years ago or more. And it didn't require doing more in the gym. It didn't require doing, pushing yourself harder. It actually required taking some things away and swapping certain things for other things. And I know when you're a very driven, motivated person and you have a background like yours, you know, it it can be hard to do that, because it feels like you're just going to lose your progress. But pretty cool that we could swap out cardio for walking and take a rest day and get the results that you got.
Yeah, and that was really, I was in that route. I was like, well, I'm just gonna do another 15 minutes if I didn't was
Hmm.
too much today or I ate bad today or whatever. And that was completely to the opposite and working in the opposite direction. And that was the case with a lot of things. I mean, the supplements I was taking, I was thought I had the right stuff. I wasn't taking it right. The way I was eating, it was healthy, but I wasn't eating right, and it just the puzzle pieces weren't quite fitting anymore.
Yeah, and sometimes that's because what works really well for us when we're 20 stops working for us so well when we're 30 or when we're in our late 30s. And also sometimes what the body needs changes. And then there's also the problem, the issue of seeing recommendations online and getting good information from multiple different sources and just not getting the whole picture. And unfortunately, in a world where there's lots of fad diets and supplement regimes and quick fixes, it's really hard to find what's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's again, like I really thought I had was doing the right stuff and was getting moderate results. I was like, well, I don't want to take this away. I'm supplementing vitamin D. That's the right thing to do. And like, well, you need it with the proper types of fats, and you need it with magnesium, and there's more layers to this than I had really done the
Mm.
research on. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
you've been a wealth of knowledge throughout this, and have always been able to pull out a study or the right information to back everything up, and that's huge. So
I'm so glad to hear that, Neil. And it's been awesome watching this transformation for you too, because like I said, there's been subjective changes and then there's been very objective, obvious changes. And a couple of those have been around your blood work. So when we first started working together, you were concerned about your glucose and your cholesterol, what was going on with your liver health, especially due to some family history. And we saw those numbers objectively change over the last 3 months, which has been really exciting.
yeah, and that really surprised me. And right off the bat, within the first few weeks, I saw some pretty big changes. And at the beginning of this, I was like, this is going to be, I accept there's going to be some big changes, and I'm really going to have to stick with it and do, be force of habit with a lot of this. And within the first month, I was already, seeing things really turn for the better. So
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
that surprised even me. I thought it was going to be a year long process with me fighting myself. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome how we can shortcut that process if we just have the right guidance. And yeah, when it comes to your blood work, we saw glucose lower, we saw your triglycerides lower significantly. We saw your LDL cholesterol lower. We saw your HDL increase. So positive changes across the board and significant ones too. You know, we're talking between 30 to 80 points with some of these. So pretty big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was important that there's some family history and some ancestors did themselves in with poor lifestyle habits, and I'd always thought I was pretty mindful of them. I mean, the outset, I'm like, I don't touch sugar hardly at all, and that
Mhm.
still, there were some underlying issues there, and there was a little deeper, you know, measure to that. So
Yeah, yeah, and the relation between cortisol, your stress hormone, which we also saw was high at the beginning, and that actually being a cause of elevated blood sugar and lipids when the diet really doesn't line up with those blood measurements. So, yeah, it was really fun to uncover the pieces of the puzzle with you and support you, and I'm really excited to move forward with you over the next few months. Um, is there anything else that you would like to share? You know, anything that you would say to someone, another, like you said, middle-aged guy who's dealing with these very common issues that are actually aren't normal?
yeah, I mean, I've had conversations with friends, and I mean, you know, even prior to us talking, we're kind of, the bro science factor, always passing stuff back and forth. And a lot of guys my age bracket are getting to that same level where it's like, oh man, I'm tired more, and I'm not quite as fast as I used to be, that kind of thing, and frustration. But um, even when diet and exercise are in a good place, like I really neglected my hormonal health. Um, I've had some sleep issues, and I wasn't either trained to look at this the right way, or just thought that would kind of follow other habits, and it wasn't. So at that age bracket, now is the time to start looking at it. um so again, I think what you do here is absolutely incredible, and you're steering people the right way very gently, but yes, you need to hear this from someone else sometimes. So
Mhm.
uh,
Mm,
I only wish really I had gotten in touch about it years sooner. So
mm, mm, mm. Well, since we turned the clock back 10 years, then we've got that time to spare. So,
certainly. So
well, Neil, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
yeah, of course. We're looking forward to continue this. I know we had a little breakthrough the last time we talked. Then there's something to follow up on that was kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
see where that
Yeah.
goes.
Yes, I'm excited too. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.